to the church, Unitarian Universalist Church of the Brazos Valley. We're going to start by singing the hymn, Gathered Here. I think it has the words on the screen. Yeah? All right. I don't have the words, so hopefully I can remember them. You might have to help me out. And we have Darby on the drums, so she's going to give us a beat to lead us in. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit draw near. All right, let's get some hands in here. You ready? Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit draw near. Let's do that last line together, nice and slow. Spirit draw near.
Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Brazos Valley, UUCBV, or Brazos UU for short. My name is Darby, and I am going to be serving as your worship assistant today. We are a welcoming congregation, which means that we celebrate and welcome all people of diverse sexual orientations and gender identities. We also strive to welcome people across diversities of race, age, ability, immigration status, and belief. We are also a congregation working for reproductive justice. So whoever you are, wherever you have come from, wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome here.
Good morning. My name is Berel-Harrop. I'm so privileged to be here today. From Katie Romano Griffin, this morning we'll begin by invoking the past, present, and future. Come, let us enter this space of hope and community. Come, let us enter this space with our sorrows, our joys, our passion and compassion. Come, let us enter this space with the stories of our ancestors, for their strength and wisdom beats in our hearts. Come into this space, present to the beloved companions who move beside us. Come into this space, mindful that together we are building a future for other generations. Come into this space and let us worship.
If you will, please say our chalice lighting words with me. We light the chalice. Oh, that's right. I apologize. I'm going to interrupt this. I forgot to ask Rory to come up and light the chalice while we were saying the chalice lighting words. We'll try again now that we've got our chalice lighter. We light the chalice, the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith, as a beacon of hope for all who seek justice, dignity, and compassion, and in celebration of the life of truth and meaning we share together. And now if you'll please join me in saying our affirmation statement. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its gift. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. And now, as Unitarian Universalists, we believe that there is a spark of the divine in every being. So if you would please take a moment to greet the divine sparks around you. We'll take just a few minutes to do this, and I will ring our chime when we're done. One more time, just while we settle into the space. Now we're going to sing a song from our gray hymnal, number 6, Just as Long as I Have Breath.
This is one of my favorites. I'm going to do a little intro, and then we'll jump in. Just as long as I have breath, I must answer yes to life. Though with pain I make my way, still with hope I meet each day. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to life. Just as long as vision lasts, I must answer yes to truth. In my dream and in my dark, always that elusive spark. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to truth. Just as long as my heart beats, I must answer yes to love. Disappointment hears me through, still I kept on loving you. If they ask what I did best, tell them I said yes to love.
Before I start, I just want to give a shout out to this congregation because you all in the last election cycle were power riders and wrote almost 1,500 postcards to voters encouraging them to vote. I don't know if you knew that, But this congregation was like number one among all the. And I did bring the cards. They are on Reverend Kaya's desk, and so I imagine that there will be plans to continue to do the postcards to voters as well as the other get out the vote and democracy activities that the Texas Unitarian Universalist Justice Ministry, or TexUJM, will be offering to you. So now, what is faith and democracy? I am coming into being the faith and democracy organizer for the Justice Ministry throughout the fall. What about democracy justifies our faith, especially African Americans' faith in it? That's a question that Melvin Rogers asked in his book, The Darkened Light of Faith. Democratic processes in the United States have been the very means of enforcing oppression throughout our history. I'll just name one or two examples: the establishment of Jim Crow and laws and ordinances that restricted folks' movement, the GI Bill that provided financial benefits to white folks that were not extended to folks who were not white. So this democracy that we have, it is a way that can perpetuate harm. And so why do we have faith in it? From the very beginning, it was really a veneer of democracy and not the real thing. It was white landowners who were extended the franchise or the right to vote. And those who were not in this so-called representative democracy pushed back. Your moral imagination is too small. There's important wisdom that we too have to give. We too are entitled to the very same human rights and to our own self-determination. And so this pushback, you can see it in the Constitution, which I hadn't looked at it in a while, but I went back and looked at it. So in 1868 and 1870, we had Reconstruction amendments that prohibited denying the right to vote. It's all negative in the Constitution. You may not do this. It's not like you may, all people should be able to vote. So in the Reconstruction amendments, it prohibited denying the right to vote from male citizens older than 21, and prohibits denying the right to vote on the basis of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. So that was trying to undo the evils of slavery. Then years later, in 1920, women too should have the right to vote. So now we have men and women older than 21 who have the right to vote. In 1964, there was an amendment, I forgot about this one, that was prohibiting poll taxes. So you had kind of the forces that were against inclusion that thought up ways to get around this prohibition of denying the right to vote based on race. That's 1964. Then finally, in 1971, we extended the franchise to those who were over 18 to get to where we are now. And still, so many people that are impacted by the laws that are being enforced do not have the right to vote. And part of faith in democracy, to me, is the idea that we can be stewards for these people. For people who are under 18, like we're making decisions about their lives that will profoundly impact them without their input. And so as people that are interested in progressive values and in the planet, it's our duty to speak and to be active for those folks. For people who are out of status or who are not US citizens, they live in communities, they pay taxes, they are part of our beloved community. And we must be up there and participating in order to bring these other voices into the fold. And that's not even to speak about voter suppression, which is an ongoing thing that's happening right now. So we have this struggle to expand the franchise, to get more people to the table, and then the backlash. And so we have this kind of going back and forth thing happening, and we're in a very dire period in this ongoing struggle and dance that says we don't want a veneer of democracy. We want actual, multiracial, pluralistic, and inclusive democracy. And that's very aspirational, I have to say. Every time we move forward with a victory for pluralistic, multiracial democracy, there are very organized forces that simply don't believe in that. Paul Weyrich, who is one of the founders of the moral majority, said, I don't want people to vote. When we have more people voting, our priorities are not moving forward. This Paul Weyrich established the moral majority in order to push back against laws that prohibited segregation, sort of indirectly through the tax code. If you had a school that was a segregated school, didn't matter if you were a nonprofit, you didn't get a tax break. And so that's where the moral majority actually came from. You know, a lot of people think it was Roe versus Wade and abortion, but it was not. It was people who wanted to enforce segregation, wanted to enforce oppressions in our society, and wanted a palatable way of forwarding their views. Now, this we hear and know as Christian nationalism. So I'm sure you've heard this term. This is sort of a big thing going on. There is this idea, it's actually white Christian nationalism. The idea that you have to be white, you have to be Christian to be making decisions and being in government. And it's a certain kind of Christian. It's not the Christians who you are in relationship with down the street at Friends Congregational Church to offer our whole lives. No, that is not who they have in mind. They have in mind people who adhere to a worldview that basically is what's called dominionism. So the idea that whatever is their view of the Bible, that's what we should enforce. Now, that's sort of where we are. That's the environment that we're in. And I know I'm talking to Darby that y'all have been talking a lot about the Article 2 and the living tradition of Unitarian Universalism and the new values. And I would like to kind of focus in on the part where they talk about justice, right? And so the way that the Article 2 is structured is that it's a value, these things we hold important, and then it's a promise. What are we going to do? Because we hold these things important. So justice, we work to be diverse, multicultural, beloved communities where all thrive. We covenant to dismantle racism and all forms of systemic oppression. We support the use of inclusive democratic processes to make decisions within our congregations, our association, and society at large. And what I want to point out about this is that two things. One, we promise to support the use of inclusive democratic processes. Democratic processes are not necessarily inclusive. We've already talked about that the minority, that the majority can kind of push their will onto the minority. In our current environment, a small minority can gain control of government and push their will. So inclusive is a very important question. Is the democracy that we're working with inclusive? Then the second thing I want to point out is that democracy is not an end in itself, right? We have faith in democracy, but not an unexamined faith. We want democracy for what it can do. We want democracy to create beloved community. So when we're thinking about doing democracy work, we should also be thinking about what's underlying that. Like what democracy is our theory of change to make a more just society. To remind you what beloved community means, this was popularized by the civil rights leader, Dr. Martin Luther King. And the King Center reads, "Beloved community is a global vision in which all people can share in the wealth of the earth. In beloved community, poverty, hunger, and homelessness will not be tolerated because international standards of human decency will not allow it. Racism and all forms of discrimination, bigotry, and prejudice will be replaced by an all-inclusive spirit of," I'm gonna amend this because it's gendered language, to familial ties. So, what I want to suggest is that we center justice and beloved community when we think about the way that we do democracy work. And what could that mean? What does justice-centered democracy work look like? First, it actively moves in relationship and in partnership with the people who are most impacted by what's going on in the world, what the oppressions are in the world. And so this is where context matters. You can do community discernment. Y'all have the box out there for Jane's due process, right? So like you've made a community tie there. It's important for us to be involved in abortion access for teens who can't be involved in the process, who are victimized really by the current laws. So you connect with community groups that are aligned with your passions and gifts and values. Another point about justice-centered democracy work, we want to actively remove impediments to voting, we can provide information about voting, rise to the polls, but we also need to acknowledge and be concerned with the reasons why people are disillusioned with voting as an expression of their power. They don't believe in it. There's a lot of people that don't believe that voting is going to do anything. And so there's a different, deeper question when you're talking to these folks. Like, what do you want? Like, what do you want for your family and for your community? What do you need to help you thrive? And to be having a relationship and a conversation that goes beyond this next election. Which leads me to the next sort of hallmark of justice-centered democracy work. We advocate for policy initiatives that make a difference. And so, this may feel very like, oh, this is daunting, but democracy work is continual work. It's not just every 2 years, every 4 years, but it includes that in-between time of visiting with elected officials, of organizing your communities, of being out in the streets demanding the things we need for justice. I would say, I have faith in democracy, but I don't have that much faith in voting, personally. I acknowledge that there's limits to the efficacy of the current process. We're not gonna get over gerrymandering by voting harder. It's not gonna happen. We're not gonna remove big money or lobbyists by voting harder. And I've got some really good legislatures, but I've seen them compromise on important principles. And so when we're speaking with people about voting and democracy, like, it's a total picture. You know, it's not like if you vote in this next election and you vote with the people who are consistent with your values, you will get apple pie and everything that you want. No, actually, no, that is not the way it works. It's a very long journey. And so it's important to have the community be real and take the risks to be able to be consistent in your work. And there's a lot of people who are really concerned about their vote and whether, and participating in a process that they consider morally wrong. I know people who I respect that aren't sure if they're going to participate in the presidential election this year. As you're talking to people, you may find that to be so as well. And so I approach this with active listening, with compassion, and not judgment or fear. I get it, you're thinking about it, and I'm so glad that you take your vote so seriously. Well, what do you think about all the other stuff that's on the ballot? You know, the presidential election isn't the only thing. I'm watching county commissioners pretty closely because I'm concerned about the jail population. And there's other ways to talk about voting as a demand for something different or a prayer for the world that you want to build. But the point here is that we can't believe or imagine that every person's experience is the same, every person's moral compass is the same, even if we share some underlying values. And we need to listen and not judge. So what I believe is in grounding our work in hope and in possibility. So for me, that local focus is where it is. I once worked on a campaign that was decided by 16 votes. So that's like, there's more than 16 people right here. And I know that there was a city council election here in Brazos County a few years ago. It was 6 votes decided this election. And those numbers, like, that's your family. That's a household and a couple of friends. So I think that you can generate a lot of excitement by showing people and talking to people about how you can really make a difference. I want to talk a few words about doing democracy work together as a faith community, because that's another way that we can kind of exercise and show our faith in democracy. And every faith community is different. I'm actually in coalitions where people are saying to me, we can't bring get out the vote work to our congregation, it would be too controversial. We're just concentrating on making sure our people in our own congregations can vote. And that's great, that's fine. And as you are working with partners in your own community, you also may find that to be so. But what I can suggest is that, like, we, the Texas UU Justice Ministry, are going to be offering many things you can do. Postparty, phone banking, we're hoping to do canvassing. I understand there's going to be a concert or there's some kind of plans here, or something that y'all are going to do. And so you can be like a nexus as a faith community, you can be a nexus for others to be able to get involved who are like, yeah, 100% voting in our congregation is great, but I'm going to do a little bit more than that. So that, like, different faith communities in different places can synergize together. We here, as Unitarian Universalists, are really lucky because UU the Vote has been providing nonpartisan tools for organizing for several election cycles. So I want to talk just a little bit about what's exciting about nonpartisan work. And I've done partisan work for campaigns, nonpartisan work, and now the nonpartisan work is where I want to be. So number one, most of our partners that we work with are specifically looking to mobilize the folks who are less likely to vote. They're what we would call low propensity voters. So remember I said justice-centered democracy work wants to create beloved community with people who aren't being heard and aren't being helped by the current system. So we want to talk to those people and get them to the table. Even if they don't vote, you talk to them, they don't vote, but you have a conversation with them, you understand their concerns a little better, you can represent them a little better in your advocacy work. And so it's an expression of a faith commitment that democracy works better when there are more people at the table. The other piece of this is that these folks are all a little bit less likely to be targeted by partisan campaigns. So I have 100 text messages from various campaigns, but that doesn't mean the people that we're the people that we target for nonpartisan work, they don't get 100 text messages. You might be the only person that wants to talk to them. Here's another interesting finding from the Environmental Voter Project. The Environmental Voter Project identifies environmentalists who also do not vote. That is their whole thing, is they want to get environmentalists who don't vote to become consistent voters. And they've done research, and what they found was partisan messaging turned off less likely voters. So people who are disengaged from the system because of partisan messaging. So if you come with a nonpartisan message, if we care about you, we care about your concerns, we want you to be at the table, that's a more engaging message than vote for this person. And then finally, it's a great way to build community and community power. So I'm going to just share an anecdote from the 2020 cycle of UU the Vote. So there was a couple of runoff elections in Georgia that occurred. We found out in November there was going to be runoff elections in January. And shortly after we knew this, we who were the volunteers held a huddle and we were like, what are we going to do about these runoffs? And we came up with a plan that people who didn't live in Georgia held virtual space on a weekly basis for filmmaking to Georgia. So people all over the country were able to do this nonpartisan filmmaking into Georgia, which freed up people who lived in Georgia to knock on doors. And so there was this just very exciting, enthusiastic participation in a group effort, like all over the country, to help to get folks to express their community will and their power in those runoff elections. So remember, voting is just one expression of that community power. Just one. There are other ways to also express that community power. And so the challenge and the opportunity is to stay in relationship and power building after and between elections, and to demand that everyone may strive with specific asks. So what about democracy justifies our faith in it? We can, through democracy work, develop or deepen partnership with impacted communities so that we can change conditions. We can actively create conditions where all can thrive. We can expand our imagination of democracy work to include some consistent civic engagement, demanding a culture for everyone where all can thrive. We can build community power grounded in joy, hope, and possibility, and counter these messages of fear that are out there. Because there's a lot of anger and fear out there, and we have a saving message that we don't have to live that way. And we can take this veneer of democracy and just break it up and build actual multi-racial, pluralistic, and inclusive democracy. Last election cycle, so that's 2022, Unitarian Universalists all over the country contacted 3 million voters. This election cycle, we're also have that same goal, to contact 3 million voters and to have conversations with voters about the issues that matter with them. And I invite you and hope that you will get involved in this joyful and faithful work. And I really, really look forward to seeing all of you and what y'all do. Thank you.
All right, it's time for another song. Again, if you will look to your gray hymnal, number 168, One More Step. And now, let an offering be taken to sustain and strengthen this place, which is sacred to so many of us. A community of memory and of hope, for we are not the keepers of the dream. This church shares the proceeds of the offering plate donation every week to help support important nonprofit organizations with which we work. The 4 groups that we voted to support with this year's donations are not updated in the worship script. So y'all help me remember. Tidy Hope Village, the Brazos Interfaith Immigration Network, Brazos Valley Blessings, and the Trans Joy Project. 15. We vote on this every May at our congregational meeting. Please be as generous as you can.
In a justice-centered democracy, there isn't just one person or group calling the shots. It's about all of us. There's room for us all. I've always loved the imagery of flying, as in a bald eagle, a flag, as a symbol of freedom and joy. Speaking of democracy. In Reverend Kai's song, Icarus, she reminds us, before he fell, he flew. Ansel Elkin's poem, Autobiography of Eve, concludes with a similar sentiment. Let it be known, I did not fall from grace. I leapt to freedom. I wrote this song a few weeks ago, thinking of Eve and Lucifer and Crowley and all the others who were cast out in various Christian narratives. And I'm a little nervous, so I'm glad that I like you guys. I was thinking, what if they didn't actually do anything wrong? What if they just found themselves in an unjust, non-democracy situation? What's the fallen angels side of the story? And with that, I will debut my song, I Flew. In the beginning there was a word, and the word was love. We marveled in the warmth and light as the new stars shone above. I was giddy with what could be as you let your dreams unfold, but your promises began to sound like threats as the universe grew cold. I thought I knew the melody, but then you went and changed your tune. I felt like I was standing siding on the side of a shifting dune. What happened to the love and truth I thought I knew? I did not fall, I flew. How can you call it choice when there's just one way to go? Put it on the shelf, you said, and someday I might let you know. But I thought love shouldn't be a thing that a person has to earn. It wasn't safe to disagree. My eyes began to burn. Could you love me as me and not a pawn in some great plan? Will you answer my questions, please? I only want to understand.
that we receive and for each other. May your generosity return to you tenfold. We do have a couple of announcements this morning. The Gentle Yoga and Meditation Summer Series with Stephanie and Liz on Saturday is at 9 a.m. You can see them, or you can see the flyer or the e-cast for more information. There is also a Monday meditation group that's meeting here if you are interested in meditation groups. That's also on a flyer outside. For those of you that are visitors, because I know we've got some visitors here this morning, I'll invite you to coffee and conversation after the service. Our fellowship hall is a little bit bare on seating, so apologies for that, but we are going to be having our floors worked on this week. So we moved a lot of our chairs and tables out already, and for those of you members that might be available to stick around a little bit later after coffee, to help us pick literally everything up off the floor in the front part of the church. We're going to be moving things back to the back or up here onto the stage in preparation for getting our floors worked on. Any assistance that you can offer in that area is very, very appreciated. And finally, for those of you that are missing Allison and our amazing RE programming, I'll remind you that the school year curriculum is amazing and awesome. She's got classes for the kiddos around passions for music, around the Twilight Zone, around Legos. There are a lot of fun opportunities for the kiddos to learn, and that means opportunities for those of us that are adults to volunteer to help run those programs. The best thing in the entire world for Allison's return from vacation, she takes off in the month of July. When she comes back in August, if her inbox was absolutely full of volunteers and she didn't have to worry about any more recruitment for the rest of the summer, would be the best gift that we could give to her. So show Allison some appreciation. Sign up if you need help signing up. Come and see me, come and find me. There are QR codes and things like that in the e-cast as well. So please sign up to help with our religious education. I think that's it.
We've got two more.
Oh, we've got two more?
Yes,
What-
they
what-
weren't in the script.
What do we have? Voice of favor?
This is the wizard speaking. This week we had a representative from Ben, one of our Split the Plate folks, that bringing up that they were doing a backpack/school supply drive. And so anything that anyone might have, or they said they would take a simple donation as well. So just squeezing that one in there. And then one more, Dungeons and Dragons people, calling all gamers. We have some folks talking about putting on some games this summer, or this fall, trying to gather attention over the summer. And then, so anyone who's interested, email admin@brazos-uu.org. And that's it.
Kathy Beaver, what have you got?
Last week, Reverend Kaya mentioned that the church would not be open during the week and that the key don't come in.
So, right, so as mentioned previously, we are picking everything up off of the floor after Sunday today. That is in anticipation of getting our floors worked on, which means that if you have a key to the building, please do not use it Monday through Friday because they will be working on the floors, and we do not want to mess up any of the important work that they are doing to help our floors get cleaned up and last us for a good long while. So yes, the office will be closed. If you do need anything, you can email admin. You can also call the church office phone. I am actually planning on taking that home with me this week. So if you'd like to chat with me, you can reach me at the office phone. I'll have that with me all week, and we can definitely handle any emergencies or needs that might come up. So, anybody else? Any more voices of deity from anywhere? Oh yeah, D&D in the subject line for the gaming. Kim.
I just want to let the congregation know I had a text message from John Ivy, and
So for those that might not have heard, although Ken's voice carries very well, John and Lisa are safely in Hawaii, longtime members and friends of ours that have recently relocated. All right, I think we've got it covered. So if you would now please join me in extinguishing the chalice. Let's see, you had it? Awesome, thank you. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we gather together again. You want to lead the benediction? All right.
Would love to lead the benediction. Okay. You ready? Remember